What's going on? Welcome back to Tony's Take. This is episode 4. The reset button, cleaning out the basement, and everything else. I think that's what we're going to talk about today. I cleaned out my basement this morning a little bit. Not a full clean out. Not a full disc cleanup. But enough to make me take some inventory, self-evaluating. And I came to the conclusion that cleaning out the basement was a lot like cleaning out some of the other junk that's going on, right? You have overloading your brain with too many thoughts, putting too much on your plate, overloading that motherboard. And it's important to try to declutter, to get some of that stuff out of there. So just like I was cleaning up this basement and going through some old bins and going through some cords that belong to devices that don't even exist in this house anymore, it kind of gave me, is almost symbolic, because I started to think about some things that I can, change about me, or what I can do to, make my life a little easier, to avoid some of the stress, some of the negative energy, and negative energy is a big one, right? We see that every day. We see that on the news. We see it on social media. We see it with our friends sometimes, our family members. Sometimes we're just not in the mood and we don't want to deal with things and we crash out. And the best way to do that sometimes is to take it out on the people you care about the most. Or maybe not purposely, not maliciously, but nevertheless, it happens sometimes, right? So taking the negative inventory, thinking about some negative inventory that I find for myself is I let things get to me too easily. It could be something real simple that might not bother somebody else too much, but it just overloads me with like anger or, a quick snap. Like I just snap for 10 seconds. And I know everybody does that. And I know that's a good thing sometimes, just to get it out. But I find myself doing that way more these days. And I think it's, just because of some things that are going on, like not working right now, not having a structured 8 to 5, I'm not in that structured rhythm, the schedule, that the habits, the good habits, when you're not working, your brain's kind of wandering, you're trying to find things to do. So it doesn't look like you're just sitting around doing nothing all day long. And I'm very, very busy, uh, you know, looking for specific jobs that, fit roles that I've been in before. And I'm extremely uptight about the structure that I'm no longer in. So I could take that out on people, not with malice intent, but accidentally. You know, they might not even be in the same room as me, but they hear me snap for a couple seconds about something else that's going on. And it immediately may trigger some type of anxiety for them. My wife used to tell me this, and I kind of just never really thought about it before until now, today, when I was cleaning some things out. And this is one thing that I want to take to that next level, is understanding and getting my emotions in check, because some things you just can't control. And why are we wasting negative energy on things you can't control? I heard this so much in my life and it never made sense. I'm 50 years old and I just be like, I just want to, if I vent, I vent. I don't need a lecture about it. Right? I want to go on a tantrum for 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Let me do that. But when you don't realize you're doing that 20 times a day, maybe you need some inventory. You need to take some inventory, get it in check, and maybe understand that you can only control the things that you can control and not let other things bother you. So that was one piece of inventory that I took that I'm like, I can get better at that. I know I can get better at that. At least until the 49ers start in September. I can get better at that for sure. Um, you know, like, you know, like just like physical trash, emotional trash, mental trash, habit trash. You can start cleaning that all up. That's not something that you have to hold on to. Something's bothering you or something was said to you and you're just letting it live rent free in your head. No good. No bueno. So I want to say this, and cleaning out the clutter, right, gives you that sense of control when life feels uncontrollable, right? So that's what I was doing today. I'm like, I can control this. I'm so sick of looking at these cords. I can control this. I can throw them out blindly. I was throwing away cords today that I just know. I could just tell by the hookup. I'm like, I don't have this anymore. Trash. I'm not sitting there trying to figure it out. I'm not looking at other devices. Does it go in here? Does it go in there? No. I found a wallet today. It had probably 50 sporting tickets in there. And I mean, they dated back as far as 2004. It's 2026. I mean, Obama wasn't even in office yet. That's how old these tickets were. This is dating back to Bush. So why did I hang on to that stuff for so long? Was it sentimental? It's a sentimental value, right? It's a sports team. It's your sports team. You know, maybe it was a big high school Red Knight basketball game. You know, I'm crazy about the Red Knights. Maybe it was a game that I was like, I need to hang on to this ticket. I was there for that game. You know, like really made a big difference if I still got the ticket today. Like, who do I need to like prove that I was there, right? But back then it had a sentimental value to it. Today, 50 years old, it does not. There's no sentimental value with a sports ticket. Now, if I have an autograph of someone or something like that on a ticket, I might save that, but trash. The wallet, trash. So I think it just reduces like anxiety that we talked about in episode 2. Yeah, episode 2. And it gave my brain a sense of victory today. Because I'm like, I really got through that stuff. It felt good. But it's just like anything, like I said, with the negative energy, bad habits, all of that. There's a way to get through it and clean it up. You know, the basement down here is pretty dark. I have one window. I can't even reach the window without a step stool because it's just too high up and it's kind of like in a corner over there. There's not much light that comes through from it. I have a huge tree in the backyard, so when the sun is out back, you know, during the day, yeah, the sun would be out back. There's no light getting in because the tree's in the way anyway. So it's dark down here. When all the lights are off, it's pitch black. You can't see a thing. So just like some things that might be sitting in your brain or your emotions, you know, the dark feelings and things of that nature, you don't want to deal with it. You know, you don't want to deal with that type of stuff, but sometimes you have to. You know, same with your mind when you're stressed, unemployed, overwhelmed. It's the same thing. Cleaning out the basement made me realize I already started the cleanup or the reset button. I planned it and then didn't even realize I was planning it. So now, some of the things that have been on my mind have been things like starting over at 50, like I said earlier, looking for a structured position again, being in banking for 2 decades, trying to find something in that field to get back to that because that's where all the experience is at. Not having the degree adds to those pressures. But realizing, and again, taking the inventory, I realized that those 22 years in banking, that has transferable skills, right? I could take those skills and apply them to different jobs or portfolios with different companies that are outside the financial realm. I was outsourced with my previous job. They outsourced us and moved some of the positions to the Philippines. So when I was out on surgery in June, before I went out on surgery, so let's back up. Before we went out on surgery, I trained for 6 weeks. And then I went out on surgery. And while I was out on surgery, I received a message from a girl that I work with that said, "Hey, got to talk to you real quick. I don't know if you've heard, but there's layoffs coming. The end of August, the end of September. End of September. And then the rest in December by the end of the year, 2025 year." So I was trying to get myself together because I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm out of work. I'm getting 66 and 2/3 of my paycheck, and now I'm going to go back to work and I'm going to get laid off. Oh, there's no plan. Like I said, I just had surgery done. I'm still kind of recovering from that. But that was outside of my control. I had no control over that. It wasn't performance based. In fact, I got a letter of recommendation from, the VP of the department, and my boss, at the time was willing to do that for me as well. So they did everything that they could, to provide me with the information that I needed to take to the next company or the next position that I held. So, I was very thankful of that. And I kind of understood the overall game plan of the company and why they went to that direction. And I let it beat me up. Even when they told me it wasn't performance based, even when they told me, hey, we're letting go of a lot of good people. You happen to be one of them. Like, I got to take that L. It's not on me. I couldn't control that. But it kind of gave me this opportunity. And I remember talking to my cousin at my uncle Steve's funeral. Rest in peace, Uncle Steve. And he said to me, he looked at me while we were eating at the wake. And he just looked over at me and he said, this is the perfect time. There's no better time in the world for you, Tony, to hit the reset button. And I knew what he was getting at. I understood what he was saying. I comprehended it. I'm not dumb. But I didn't really truly understand what he was getting at. And he was trying to tell me, reinventing yourself, it's not a bad thing. It's just, like a pivot towards a more positive direction, maybe something different, and reinventing you as a person, even though you don't have any experience in doing something in that field or whatever field you want to go into, letting me know that pivot could be something that's way greater than I could ever imagine. So those were good conversations, and we're still having those conversations. And in fact, I think I have a call with him tonight. And we're discussing business type stuff and, how to move forward and, try to make a decent living in an entertainment world. And he owns an entertainment business. So, those are some things that, I won't be front and center, but maybe behind the scenes a little bit more, pushing and marketing and doing some things for the company. And hopefully that is something that, we can see if that works out for me. So, resetting habits, health, energy, cleaning out the clutter down here. I can kind of work that also into my own personal physical appearance and physical, trying to get my health right. That's just like cleaning out the clutter. It's kind of like burning off the mental, the physical fat, or even mental fat. Um, Bad habits are like uh, junk in storage, as I mentioned earlier about things just sitting in these bins. It's the same thing. Like the bad habits pile up quick. And especially when when you're not focused on something like a job and you have a little extra time on your hands, bad habits can creep in. And they were creeping in shortly after I was let go. Kind of just going back to eating like crap again because I could eat certain foods again that I wasn't able to eat before the surgery. So I was indulging and enjoying those foods and putting on, you know, some unwanted pounds. And I felt at the time I was making excuses. Like, hey, I couldn't do this stuff for, the last couple years. Definitely the last 2 years I couldn't do it. So I was just catching up. I was catching up. And but I started to take that inventory, like, hey, listen, I gotta start eating better. So I started doing that. I'm eating cleaner. I'm feeling better just from doing that, just from eating cleaner, even though I can't move too much right now with the exercise and with this issue that I got going on that I'm in physical therapy for. But I'm moving towards the right direction. You know, even if it's a slow weight loss, it's better than a weight gain. So that's how I'm kind of taking that and, putting that into perspective. And I know people can relate to that. So, um, resetting kind of helps you, replace, replace the old habits with new ones. So you get to reset, you get to plan a little bit, say, okay, I can do this, I can do that. Come up with a resolution that, you're setting your goals to reach, and those resolutions can be very helpful. Those goals can be helpful to reach the proper resolution that you want. Um, and just taking the inventory and cleaning up, whether it's junk in the basement, whether it's junk in the brain, whether it's junk emails. I can't tell you how many emails I get a day, especially now with flooded, with Indeed, LinkedIn. I'm networking, so I'm getting messages back. So and so messaged you back, and I'm just kind of letting it sit in there. Like I know I got to get to that next, and I know when I do that, and I know when I clean that mailbox up, I'm gonna feel great. But it boosts the mood, and it gives you momentum because like today when I was doing this, I kind of set that goal. I'm like, tomorrow I'm gonna get to the emails. I have to. And not I read the emails, but it's cleaning them up, putting them in the folders that I've already created. So I'm organized like that. I just didn't move them into the folders yet. I have to get better at that. So that was a goal I already set for tomorrow. So it's giving me momentum for the following day. Uh, so made me feel good and gives me something to work towards. And then tomorrow when I get to the emails and I clean them up, something else might spark an idea when I see an email. That might give me another momentum shift to do something else. So I'm excited about that and positive energy. I'm feeling a lot of positive energy. When you're clear of, when you're clear of physical space, your brain opens up, right? And that's kind of how this podcast started. Like I've been talking about it for such a long time. And I said, I have to do something. Like I have to, I'm not real comfortable with being in front of a camera, but I can talk. And I'm like, I can get on Spotify and I can talk about some things that I write down. I'm a writer, so I can talk about things. And I just, one night, the podcast just kind of accidentally started. So with that, came like the ideas now that I've already had, they started to come back and they started to make, hey, these are some things that you wrote down already, got them off your chest. Why don't you talk about them now? Maybe you'll help somebody else. So that's what I did. And I feel a lot better getting to a place and getting to that space where positive energy is surrounding me. You know, I'm cooking clean meals for the fam. I'm not waking up as early because I'm staying up later because my brain right now, I feel like I'm like in between a second and third shift where I stay up super late and I'm going through, applications that I submitted, or I'm getting feedback from applications, or I'm, just looking at some of the older jobs that I saved and maybe that company has new positions open. So I'm just checking them out. And there's times I'm up till 3, 4 in the morning and I'm on Indeed or I'm on LinkedIn. And I'm just, I got a message late last night and I was looking at that. And I'm like, oh, I used to work with her. And she reached out to me. So, you know, I'm up late and sometimes that's good, but sometimes that's bad. I wake up a little later, but you know, I'm making cleaner meals. I'm eating healthier. I'm making better choices. I'm becoming more accountable for those because I have a podcast that I'm running now. So I have to show some progress in losing weight, right? Showing that on film, that's accountability. So there's all these creative ways in doing things to motivate yourself to reach goals. So that's how this idea started with possibly going into helping my cousin, you know, do some sales for his company. I was never a salesperson at the bank. That's not me. It was never sale. I never wanted to do sales ever. However, when you're not working and you're trying to make income for the family, you want to try, you might be great at it, right? I might be good at this. And I don't want to let my cousin, who is more like a brother to me, down. And I know what they say about, family working together and uh but that's not how it is. It's more of a, you can do this. I know you can do this. And that's the vibe and that's the energy that I've been getting from him. So it's just time. It's again, resetting, reinventing. It's time. So I'm exploring, I'm experimenting, um, you know, trying things that, maybe weren't really aligned with my previous skills, but moving maybe towards out looking outside the box and realizing there are some other things that I could be great at. And I think everybody can take that self inventory, right? Whether you're someone that's, really into school and furthering your career. Unfortunately, that was never motivation that I had. I never had that motivation to continue my education after high school. I wanted to just go into the working force. I originally wanted to go into the Marines, was the original plan. Then I wanted to go to the art school. Things happen, where you don't reach that. And a further education for me, it's just not my cup of tea. But I, hold a lot of my peers in high regard for them staying true to that and staying, keeping their energy focused on that career. That is something to commend. And that's hard work because a lot of these people have children. They have kids. They're raising children. They have, raising multiple kids and they're in sports and they're juggling getting a master's. And, so that's something that I can look at and look at that and say, what, that's great. But I could never go back to that world. Um, so, I just, at this age, reinventing is scary, but doesn't mean I have to go back to school. There's other things I can do. Um, but staying stuck is scarier. So, and I think people, you know, look at that and say, yeah, you know, thinking outside the box can be uncomfortable at times, but that's where growth happens. And for me, I think I'm on my way. I'm getting there. So we'll see. We'll see how we'll see how things end up. Um, so building a new version, right, of yourself, and we all can probably appreciate that, and we can all get there. And even if you've been at a job for 20 years, you've been with the same company for 20 years, or you've been with the same department for 10 years, you could move up, or you could take those skills somewhere else. You could take the experience from the portfolio that you work in with that company and take that experience and work on a totally different portfolio with a totally different company that has nothing to do with the company that you're working for now, just based off your experience. So keep that in mind. So turning the bad energy into the fuel, right? So the anxiety, the frustration, the disappointment on things that you can't, again, can't control. That's not useless. That's not always a bad thing, right? Sometimes we need that motivation. That's energy. That's energy. Just like fat can be burned for fuel, negative emotions can be burned into the momentum that I talked about earlier. So the reset button isn't just about erasing the past. It's about what's the word I'm looking for? Repurposing it. Repurposing. So that's encouraging. That can be encouraging. Can be scary, but can be encouraging. So everyone I believe everyone probably has something similar to a basement or an attic or whatever. Um, so I think that everybody can kind of relate to those cleanup vibes, right? Physical or emotional. Everyone has clutter that we're trying to avoid or want to clean up and just don't get to it. Everyone hits, everyone hits a point where they need to reset, even if they don't want to, but they know it's important that they have to. And I think like all of our stories are kind of similar. They're maybe not exactly down to the details, but they're similar. We have similar things. People our age, even people younger than us, or the generation older than us, who's getting ready for a whole different type of energy as they age. So my story is no different than some of the other people that are going on in their journey in life. They're losing a job or job changes, health resets, mental resets. I think we all have those relationship resets. I've been in the same relationship for 30 years, so that really doesn't apply to me. But a wife relationship, a spouse relationship, or a boyfriend girlfriend relationship, or a fiance relationship is different than relationships from your other family members and friends, right? So there's times where you're going to have resets there as well. And that's not always fun. So, identity resets as well. This is, so I guess in closing, if you're in the middle of the reset, right, just find the momentum that we talked about. Take what you can from the reset and why you reset and use that as the fuel for the momentum. And you don't pretend to have it all figured out, because I sure do not have it all figured out. I'm I'm sometimes I'm sitting here and I'm like, what am I gonna do tomorrow to give myself a better chance or make myself look a little bit more appealing, to a company? And sometimes that takes some time. I'm definitely having way more positive feedback since the turn of the new year than I was prior to it. So I'm using that as the fuel, and that's encouraging. So I invite you to reset with me. Not literally, but reset if you feel like you're in a funk and you need to get out of that funk and you need to get rid of that negative energy and you want to try to go into something more positive and have some momentum while you're doing that. Identify the funk. Identify the negative energies around you that surround you, whether that's clutter, whether that's friends, whether that's family, whatever it may be. Sometimes you need to cut that negative energy off to get the momentum you need to get to where you want to go. Um, so, this episode ends with maybe a new chapter for some of us. For me, for you, maybe some of your friends. But I think it's important to kind of talk about these issues because I think we all hold that negative energy too close to us. And I think we just need to start letting go of it. And I've been definitely more mindful. I still have a spaz out one or two times a day, but it's better than having 20, you know? So it's just identifying what you can control and what you can't control and try to do that as fast as possible when you're about to crash out. Um, and if you could do that, you'll give yourself a chance to be more positive and maybe even try to find something new that, motivates you more, than you've ever been. So sometimes bad things have to happen or sometimes negative things have to happen for you to wake up and hit the reset button. So with that being said, hit the reset button. And like always, how we always end this, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and God bless.